Trashi dele, tene traja kala yoba, tene te tawi jale, togo yume tene, zambaranga traja kala yoba, tamjela, tene trashi dele, tene thoma yune tene, sanje ronze nana, tene samta ngunje, diti japso chebo, dine tene, ta zambaranga, shibji tamjela, kapso shibji tamjela chabe tene, Samjig, Dr. de Jobab, Tashidele.
Tashidele to everyone. Tashidele also to everyone joining us on the live stream from all over the world. So first of all, I would like to offer to you this nectar that comes from the Buddha's begging bowl. It's a vast ocean of nectar containing the nectar of loving kindness and compassion that pervades all the sentient beings in the three realms of existence. So first I would like to offer you this nectar of love. Tashideleg everyone.
Tuje Chanang, Rinpoche, Train Devon Damasaya, Kachin, the Chip Jordan, the Train, Miss Shan Java Swal, and also Thomas Samape, Gawson, Tuje Chana, Rinpoche.
Lozo, Tuje.
Ina, can you please translate?
Sure. So Khenpo Samdra was thanking Rinpoche for coming here and giving us teachings today.
So I'm going to share the opening prayer. We do opening short prayer. All mothers and beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those create obstacles on my path to liberation and damnations, may they experience happiness and be separate from suffering severely. I will still wish them in the still one surpass perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mothers and beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those create obstacles on my path to liberation and damnations, may they experience happiness be separate from suffering, and severely I will still wish them in the still one surpass perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dalla Danwara Sipeda, no Barasipege. Torpa dan tamje jembe barde ju borose pa tamje je zorsepe manam ka dan yambe semje damje wa dan lu ongar dan jer nyorde lana me ba yang da bar zobe sancho rumbo je do bar sa all Santra achieving enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and the mind. Teya chida sangma jeje barde linga ye song ge wala kor. Ma she barde linga ye song ge wala kor. Tereng ne zong de nyama sang ta samje barde. Linga yunge wala go. Chen zawa dang ji bara jebe parden lama damba namla jabzen chewo yadam jing gorje lazo namla jabzen chewo sanje jomden de namla jabzen chewo dambe chi namla jabzen chewo Pakbe gendeng namla jabzen chewo pawon kanro chi jong song me co yishi je jingdang denba namla Jobson Jewo Sancho Ningbo Chi Jepar Sanje Namlai Jobson Je Chudan Sancho Zembaye Solan De Yen Jobson Je Jedarang Je De Je Sancho Tongne Ji Badang Sancho Zembe La Bala De Darem Yen Ne Badar De Yen Rola Pendong De Sanjo Sene Ji Je Shen, De Yen De Ne La Ba La, Renba Yen De La Ba Re Je, Sanje Ji Dang Zo Jen Jo Nam La, Sanjo Bar De Dan Ne Jab Zen Je, Da Ge Jin So Ji Be So Nam Ji, Dola Bensar Sanjin Bar Jo Manam Kadan Yambe Semje Damje Dewa Dan Deve Jodan Dembar Jorje Dongara Jodan Jawar Jorje Dongara Bebe Dewa Dan Jawa Jorje Nyeren Chadan Nidang Jar Tanyo Seme Bala Nebar Jorje. Short mandala offering. Sa ye bi je zo ye ne do zhang. Ra ye de yin ban de. An ye yin la mei de burwa ye. Zhou gen nam dai yin de ye war zhu. Ge song yong zo lam me zo nam la. Sen la fang zong de yin ye jin chu. Da le long jun nan se yong yi la. La min jo ge nge zhou zar de so. San zi ba dan jo jian yao ba dan. Ji se ye ran gor jian zor wa ye. Ge wai jun se da ge je sa ba. Tam je zo be san jo zi ngong gu ru rin na men dra la ben za men ga san men dra sa wa rin na sa ma ye a ho. Jam jin je to men zam len jin chak be tong som yong la cha. Zu me jar wang dor jen chang. Pan jik den gong sham la le. Da de sam je chu le mi. Xin je lob je tu je jin. Nian ge ming ba sar ne jiang. Sem zhi zhara de do bar xin ji lo. Unequal refuge. O name of the world, your fame provides the 3,000 words. You are the victor, Vajradhara, widow adopted. I bow at the feet of Father Jigtin Sungu. Continually attain with no one but you. Compassionate one grant your blessings. Dispel darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I can realize unlimited nature of mind. Please turn the way of the Dharma of the true vehicles and the combination, according to the disposition, the likewise the mental capacity of sentient beings. Sem je nam je samba dang, lo ye se dai je da war, che jong de mong de ba ye, chi jeng go lo gor de zo.
Oh, the chudo number that she are coming the need that Zuba go show go on es. The region of the double and give them take a catch of Mamma Sunguyore, Kari Tamashi, Chimanchi on them. The Java Kumshi Betuila did it, double and give them take make cherry or it. The inland, Tara, 강이 동네 망보든 요 강무스 요 강이 드니지 사바당 hin지 다치 보이는 바 하고 다때 답고 자고 하고요 드리티 양양 때문에 뒤로 나가게 직랑이 제와다 이 지금이 저시에 성능이 같이 쇼인들이.
So today, Dharma friends, I'm going to speak speak about patience. And so generally, you receive many Dharma teachings from the various spiritual masters around the world. And it's mostly due to the kindness, the compassion of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, that the various spiritual masters around the world are opening the eyes of disciples. So what I'm sharing is more related to my own personal experience of when I had encountered hardships and suffering and directly experienced these. And this is when I understood the preciousness of love and compassion, and that I understood that it's necessary to uphold love and compassion. So I'm sharing with you, my Dharma friends, these words based on my own experience. I was requested to share these words from disciples who love me and who trust me. So now I'm going to share a few words.
안게 삼당 민지 추달레 랭총상 족생제랑 아족거스 가장 졸라 피디람동데 란데르 라바사 족생나 소와데 송어레 데네 데 삼당 민지 추달시 바다 고아치 모리 데 삼당 민지 이바다 강에 되는 들이다다 라니 속되면은 토마스 말이 강에 레벨은 또 베자세라스 노지 탐지를 시대당 성스 그래서 그런 시 레벨 봐야 주바고 맞자세라 이송 대단 대화 침보를 들으라 라는데 자세라 이마도 시라지 시름에 뒤통계 대사다체 라는데 삼제 자치 보이마 하고 통다 봤는데 그때 그 받으면 비용이 하고서 그때 들리라는 게 같이 시리
In the supplication prayer called of the Tikkun Kagyum on the fivefold path of Mahamudra, in the beginning, there's a supplication to Bodhicitta, and it says it has arisen from the water, ocean-like treasure of loving kindness and compassion, and arises to fortunate ones in the form of the bodhisattvas in order to benefit them. I supplicate to the Guru Bodhicitta. And so this term here, the ocean-like treasure of love and compassion, there is a deep meaning behind that. So what is this love and compassion? Now in the 37 bodhisattva practices, first of all, it says in the verse on patience, to those who desire a wealth of virtue, all those who do harm are like a precious treasure. And so therefore, treating everyone with patience without a mind of hostility, that is the bodhisattva's practice. So the teachings really are related to this verse in the 37 practices. And the 37 practices is really the only thing that I really know. And it is through the grace of the 37 practices that I have understood the preciousness of love and compassion. And I have understood that love and compassion are very powerful in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So I'm sharing with you to the best of my abilities on the basis of my own experiences.
로아를 도가들이 되냐 답을 시방했더니 저밖에 좀 감리 좀 감리나 되다 되나 뭐디 가래 요래들 들이 나시 동고 맨치 된 로아메 로아를 등만에 체발든 봐봐 물을 못 채네 다 다리 오래된 답을 달라가 대라 다다다 대라는 장게 좀대 많이 와 소소제네 들이 되다 대도 레이츠가 로아미 바티 근도 레이드를 로아메 테라티니 대도 많이 바티 제네는 봐 용거 요래 테라티니 되는데 대도 니가데 강에 절대 말이지 사지 동대인데 출남 담지 절에서 저면식 요 말이지 Sen destek model jogo mani mato jobe de so mani de mani de kondo ko chu tam se jobe ba cha yo mare so de de jeta kalche bore so de na ta ta so mona de mulong ka de na tusum je sa je tam je mona de dewa dang je mache de la yo be mata to ro kamsum siji zuki zumi tam kamsum siji de zuki zumi sa ba sang de de tam je 니가 생겼잖아. 동이 저요나. 데려줘요리스. 동이 용어 데려줘요리스. 진짜도 뭐 계속 좀 데이트 봐서. 들이 제 개리미트는 자다 그러면 저런 남만 나서 그런 거다 대중만이 빼망보리 참아 이쪽을 거리 자치 정마도 mention 거리. 뒤에는 남바사지 저때 감리데 저 상제레스. 저 상제나 대라 따뜻해 나바 사지 정리돼 공만 맞죠 서바 체베 바레스 체베 바이자서 뭐 사지 정리레스 때문에 삼티에 내가 제여마데 기본시 하고 요래 대라 다당 제가 그 상태는 대리 대경은 좋은 거래 대회는 진짜 다 사지 당 추지는 사지시 바데 세월한 거랑 시기 내록들이 샘도 용리 사제가 주요리지 생그랑 시대 랑가 하고도 대상제스
So there are the 6 realms of samsara, and within those 6 realms, this world, the human realm, is really a pure land of nirmanakayas. And why is that? What is the quality of this pure land? It is said that the characteristic of a human being is that they can understand meaning and express meaning. So that is why of the 6 realms of samsara, we speak about the precious human birth, and the precious human beings have evolved in this world. But then it is important for a precious human being to understand the workings of karma. Otherwise, one is an ordinary human being. And the teaching on karma is the teaching on the relative truth. Karma is unfailing. Happiness and suffering all arise from their causes. And in this human world, we experience a variety of happiness and suffering, and it all arises from a cause. The Buddha had taught that all phenomena arise from causes. There is not a single phenomenon that does not arise from a cause. It is just that Buddha nature is unarisen from a cause, but everything else relies on causes. So therefore, the Buddha taught it's very important to understand these causes. For example, when we make prayers, whichever prayer we make, this prayer is the aspiration of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. And their aspiration is the happiness and the cause of happiness for all sentient beings. So all sentient beings consist of the various beings in the realms, such as humans and animals, the sentient beings in the 3 realms, basically all beings with a body and without a body. And even the slightest happiness for any sentient being has a cause. The slightest suffering has a cause. This is what we are introduced to in the vehicle on cause and effect. And then many different religions have spread in the world, a variety of religions, but on one level or the other, they all agree on karma, on cause and effect. So what is the actual cause of happiness? It is a mind of love. And that is really the enlightened intent of the Buddha. The Buddha had developed immeasurable love. So therefore, the Buddha taught the 4 immeasurables. And even though our love may not be immeasurable, everyone understands that love is a cause of happiness, and that everything we do with a selfish mind is the cause of suffering. So this is the teaching of the Buddha and the Dharma. And a Buddha really means to know the nature of one's own mind. Everyone has a mind, and therefore everyone possesses the cause of Buddhahood. And Buddhahood is when one realizes the nature of one's own mind.
누가 당나들이 비 누가 들어간 거고 누가야 로그들 다 듣고 요리지 소자 담으로 저러지 그냥 로그를 코타 말이지 라라리 뵙지도 않는 게 되지 세배 로당 잡도 집이 쳐다 때리야 그 나도 또 셈네 데레데레랑 사진 좀 되게 랑그 셋는 용서된들 사진 때문에 사진 거기 때문에 랑그 셈 싸워서야 대인도 때리지 마 용 말이지
So on the state of Buddhahood, there is no suffering. State of Buddhahood is always in a state of happiness, going from happiness to happiness. That is why we refer to them, the Buddhas, as the bliss-gone ones. And then on the other hand, there are sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara appearing temporarily. They're just like temporary ice blocks on the ocean. The Buddha, our teacher, had said, all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious stains. Actually, everything is complete within just these words. So the outer example is ice blocks in water. As long as we are in an ice-like state, we experience various kinds of suffering, even though our true nature is water. The ocean water itself is unfrozen, experiences no suffering. So that's an outer example and representing the inner meaning of the mind. So when the Buddha said all sentient beings are actually Buddhas, what he meant is that the fundamental nature of the mind is actually Buddha. The omniscient Longchen Rabcham said something in the Treasury of Peace Instruction, the Menga, which is actually a book that Garchen Rinpoche gave me. In there it says, when you realize the nature of the mind, there is no need to read the scriptures, no more scriptures. So when you realize the nature of your mind, that is Buddhahood. The reason why we do not realize the nature of mind is because we grasp at the duality of self and other. So first, we consider ourselves as most important. In the 37 practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. Because we consider ourselves as most important, we develop the other 6 afflictive emotions. And these lead to 6 kinds of actions. And these karmas cause the mind to be in a defiled state, just like muddy water or toilet water. Nobody can drink toilet water. But then science has actually also found ways of repurifying this water and make it drinkable again. And that is also an aspect of wisdom. It is said that everything that is done in the field of knowable things or in this world is done by Buddha. So everything that's done by science, for example, is done by this quality of wisdom. And from this quality of wisdom, all the qualities of a Buddha will eventually arise. So science has found ways to purify water and make it drinkable again. And that wisdom also is a Buddha quality. And so when we apply that to the mind, in order to purify the muddied water of the mind, we need a skillful method. And that skillful method is great compassion. So when we cultivate great compassion, the mind becomes pure. And to recognize the pure nature of the mind, that is what we call Buddhahood. So whoever sees the nature of their mind is Buddha. It is the mind that is completely pure, like pure water. And so first, the mind is impure, like dirty water or dirty clothing, and we need to wash it. And the method for washing the dirty clothing or water of the mind is the Dharma. The Dharma consists of 84,000 different Dharma teachings, but it is said that all the 84,000 teachings are included within the mind of bodhicitta. And even though in this world many different religions have spread, there is no religion that is not connected to love. All religions accept love and see the importance of love. It is just that different religions have different depths, or kind of go to the into deep meanings in various different ways. Some have a more profound teachings than others. Ultimately, according to the Buddhist path, we attain the state of Buddhahood through the view of the Madhyamaka, the middle way view. And so all religions really have beneficial aspects that lead into that direction. It is just that for as long as we have not realized the nature of the mind completely, we still possess some grasping in the mind. But other than that, there's no religion that does not possess a beneficial quality. And all religions agree on the mind of love and compassion. And essentially, love is the Dharma. In the Bodhicharyavatara, it speaks about the only medicine for sentient beings. The only medicine for all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara, the only source of all benefit and happiness is love. And that is really what we call the Buddha's teachings. So when we speak about increasing and spreading, upholding the Buddha's teachings, we are really upholding loving kindness. It is that mind that is all pervasive, the mind that is unobscured by self-grasping. And this is what we practice when we listen, reflect, and meditate on the Buddha's teachings. So the Buddha's teachings really is love, and therefore we call it the sun that illuminates this world. And so that is the meaning. Now coming back to this first verse in the fivefold path of Mahamudra aspiration prayer, the ocean-like treasure of loving kindness and compassion. If you have this ocean or this water of love and compassion, then naturally trees and flowers will grow. So again, there are many different religions in the world. Their wisdom manifests in many different ways. There are many great masters in the Dharma and also in a mundane sense, meaning that there are many beings coming to benefit sentient beings in many different ways. So there are Dharma practitioners, there are ordinary worldly beings, there are beings anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara coming to benefit sentient beings, showing them the path to liberation, to happiness. There are those beings who have found peace and happiness within themselves and are able, therefore, to show that path also to others. So in brief, we can say that whoever possesses love, for example, in the Dharma, it is said, whoever possesses love, if they are male, they are Chenrezig, if they are female, they are Tara. And they all possess Buddha nature. The Buddha nature is only obscured temporarily by self-grasping. And that temporary obscuration is cleared away by cultivating an altruistic mind. So whoever possesses an altruistic mind, compassion, is Chenrezig. The aspect of wisdom is Tara. One who possesses wisdom will also naturally give rise to compassion. Wisdom and compassion are a natural union. Another outer example is that of electricity. Everything beneficial in this world is also powered by electricity. Electricity can also cause harm, for example, when it powers weapons. But from the side of electricity itself, there is no harmful intent. It just depends on how we make use of electricity. So an outer example of the mind is also electricity or the ocean like water. Then also the Buddha said, to summarize the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha said, perfectly, completely tame your own mind. This is the Buddha's teachings. So the Buddha's teachings is to purify our own minds and nothing else.
Dena tri ta ti samji de la geve long ju so ma de geve long ju de kare geva a si ba de homar geva ben zo ko sanje ta na ran dong le chu ki ja sa se ba de geva yi dong ko wa dong ne jo ya Thomas gave the city Tamsi to Sanjay Mitaba, Thomas gave a part of Geva, Thomas gave a tons about to the mother control to Material. They not the Joko Sanjay Tamsi data, the Tamsi, Kari, the data of Chasang dinner. Ah, Tata, Temba, Della Sadi, Shakatabe, Toner and the Lord of Garchen, Zoom day. Other than was a boy, Tarang and Tea, Tonto Geneva, Mabalota, Manarepa. This 나로 바텔라서 보는데 갑자기 이렇게 가야지요. 제 탐지가 다 하고는 개불은 또 대반에 랑이 탐지를 핀바다 랑나 핀바지는 되와 다 저산 독심 삼지에 차지. 다 대다고 탑저를 데려드리다 라고 소가지는 사지 정리되게 장이 서로 초사시 바데 다다 남타는 파로도 선바 독으로 초사데 사지데 가야 무슨 역대 호바바도 레가지를 다른 팀이 레가지 그리고 호롱 호바지를 다 빼셔서 그러라. 대낭이 대체지 뭐래. 체지 뭐래. 랑 포장 중나라도 지래요. 야 산지도 대노서. 체디 좀다 그래지. 다바는 주제를 다바. 로도는 비티는 방에. 오, 뛰어 체력 통합 발전을 되어죠. 통합 발전을 되어지. 지원이 지원, 체험이 체험라, 대원이 대가 또 이제 다 상승을 상태에 해야지. 대다고 잡아 탑이 다 사제 좀 되게 맞아 서서히 학구를 데레데레 파도 서마토가 초사는 다다다지 문암 강의지. 남과 탈독때 받쳤다 봐서 심지만 타는 데다 뭐 심지 탐지 넘는 코나 삼네. 다 대도 심지 탐지 맞아가 바로 사제게 뭐라는데 문제 사제공 내 반이 있어. 그 정도지. 그 정도로 좀 뒤져야 요 말이에요. 오래 가디는 도와도 심지 유마제를 레토 심지 탐지 요 도로에 뒤줄 삼다는 이제 매매 직장 넘을 뒤기더니 배는 마다 보여 발라들 삼지 총주의 마다 보여 발라 토요래. 마다 보여 듯이게 노력 심지 당장 마다 보여 듯이지. 마가다타 마도도송 베텔레자 조동심진 담제다 마다 보이버 제이들 삼제가 좋은 대들도 로도 자탐제는 같이 시험하면 내가 그게 내도 봐 답답한 거 내도 봐 제이들 소조지 봐야 가리도 대도 적합니다 다 절도 절라래 대화도 대도 오 대답제 유를 삼제 대사 요리 다 삼제 유를 주가 요리 오, 상태에 주변에 다고 잠 맞을래. 들이 다들 도와 미디 물을 못 인자 상태에 주변에 다고 자토요 말지. 상태에 좀 다 좋으리스. 땅아 좋으리스. 들이 토리 사람이로 주 자체서. 들이 도요 말들이. 저 조금 동안 찬시 들을 다도 좀은 들이 유머 톡게 유머 톡게 다 레사 박차잖아. 들이 차를 하고 양짝 차를 차. 아따다 답을 마비가 등에 잡지 유머벌 마송이 찍자요 말. 소좀 뭐요 나다고 자고. 나라니 다고 나 약합다고 자고. 들어가 약을 망어체 답지 말저 따들이 대사진 수과자 내를 절 수차를 절 약합도 절 미석 답지 벌어. 밑에 소들이 따라가 이제 사도를 뒤배고도 되게 뉘라 시합 떠나잖아 또는데 오 약하다고 약해서 또 말이 미다고 약을 약해 대를 대다 놓쳤다 하다가 나지 톡실 차가운 거 대다고 차는 그래 잡을 때도 계속 하지 그래서 왔던 게 랑걸 좋다고요 말 절만 되는 거 지와 만부지는 돈이 매일 때인데 노용 쪽에 차네 들리 먹기와 쩌째요래 먹기와 쩌째래 다 뒤래다 되게 다 양다양의 메인에 뒤래 사과 보다 속살이가 냠도 정도 들이다 다 차요 그러지. 대를 그게 지들까지 다 하고 그러네. 그래서 그 소통 나지니 막한도 로연게 나도 그저 참아 듣다 보면 잘 이걸 나 살려서 록다서들 록다들 말이 코리 나야 보고 코 놓고 버리 되게 먹이 있잖아 그때라 얘기 때 오 취시발 야보 말이지 메시 탈리요 말이지 오 레이지 베요 말 끼안나서 요말 매매도 나버리 때도 따르니 받아 커는 때다 온 잡으러 따르니 받아 받아 요말 뒤따와도 컴퓨터 망보지 때다 다 레디 용 막참 매봐 다 로아로 소들 때문에 레 요한테 하 고소나 오 내록실 오 레디 저러 통도 저 마사도 레디 용금만 없어 하고 다 제들들이 저 집에 저 사적 성공나 들들 portava tu chaun chota saje te hagun tri parti chokolan te rodo la bajelis dokte tu saje ka sa chuk te da ko dialog sa chuk sem te sigi omar pe ya yores te mini sigi omar are maris sepe sigi de to ro so chaun ho tiro de go lo baris o nan de pe de tu 상총 정말 사제 정신이 해고서 찍자요 말이지. 최답이 말한다 가지고 그 남카를 사제 가리에서 사제 남카르지. 남카를 뒤속에 용을 가서 말. 베터. 사제 담는 남카를 찍어야지. 죽어 남파다 가지고. 대답을 자사 통해. 들이 인도들이 잡초되는 사제 잡초다는 심지 처럼 따와 대답이 쉬어 탁대 코너를 쏘네. 들이 또 바탕을 박아 들이다. 심지 동제교를 대래들이 따다다 따사쪽도 sem지고 당도사쪽도 sem지 바도 담이서는 초다 타만 거 말씀이 들이 로아멘 돈는기데 로아멘 나와줘 대체 페버면 돈을 사지 좀 되지 담보를 사지 공 대답을 좀만도 sem지 나올 때 샤를 맞아 공 사지 문제도 그저 잡고 봐 스탑을 내 버리지 나빠도 안 돼 버리지 대답을 좀 들이 대답을 주시 같아 대답을 대래들이 대답 다들 가지고 다 소가고 그러지 소가고 sakkareta me certa soga고 그러지 소가 말고는 진짜 대답 제외됐다 면 하고로 말 기억하면 내게 메제서 들이다 내가 돌아내서 박차사한테 대들이 대다 단답을 듣는다고 차요 그러지
And so in the 37 practices, when it speaks about the treasure of virtue, that really is love. And so first, when the Buddha gave rise to love, that is what is called virtues in the beginning. Love is virtues in the beginning, meaning that first of all, in the beginning, the Buddha attained enlightenment through love. And as a result, he mounted the royal seat, the kingdom of the Dharmakaya for his own sake. So that is virtue in the beginning. Virtue in the middle is that then after having attained enlightenment, the Buddha then engages in the benefit of sentient beings, stirring samsara from its depths or emptying samsara from its depths. That is virtue in the middle. And then virtue in the end is then, as a result of such benefit, sentient beings can become matured. So this is actually how it is explained in the Gunshok Chichum, like a Guru Rinpoche practice. And so this is the virtue beginning, in the middle, and in the end. And now, according to the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are many remarkable masters that have appeared, such as Marpa, or Milarepa, or Panchen Naropa, and so forth. And they all endured many hardships for the sake of Dharma. So if we understand that, we understand this wealth of virtue that they pursued. And as a result, they achieved benefit and happiness for self and others, or benefit for oneself and happiness for others. So the cause of all this happiness that they achieved is bodhicitta, or loving kindness. And they knew how to preserve loving kindness. They accumulated it and they upheld it. So first the Buddha gave rise to bodhicitta, and then he accumulated merit throughout 3 endless aeons. So what he accumulated, and you can see that in his life story, what he accumulated is the 6 paramitas. But what he really accumulated with the 6 paramitas is a mind of love. So now we as worldly samsaric sentient beings, what we accumulate is money. We work day and night constantly like an ever-turning wheel to accumulate money. And that is just for the benefit of this life. It is in order to feed our family, our wives and children, and so on. The Buddha said that is mistaken because this life is just like a dream. And when we understand the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, we know that this life is impermanent. It is subject to disintegration. So therefore, what we should strive after is this cause of virtue, that is virtues in the beginning, the middle, and in the end. That cause that will stay with us from lifetime to lifetime will cause us to proceed from happiness to happiness. And that cause is called bodhicitta, or love, loving kindness. And what the Buddha taught is a method to preserve our love, to uphold our love. And that is something only the Buddha had realized, and no one else had realized that. So the Buddha accumulated this love by practicing the 6 paramitas. And it is the Buddha's aspiration to continue to appear for as long as sentient beings exist. The Buddha also said that as wherever space pervades, that is where sentient beings pervade. Wherever sentient beings pervade, suffering pervades. I will continue to pervade them for as long as these sentient beings exist. So on the relative level, Buddha emanations that come to benefit beings with this aspiration appear uninterruptedly. They appear anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara. For example, also in the animal realm. And also within the animal realm, for instance, all beings possess this Buddha within them because there is no one who does not possess love and compassion. At least beings love their own children. And that is the smallest of all love, at least one's own child. And so in this way, the Buddhas love all sentient beings, seeing them as a mother sees her child. But the Buddhas love all beings in the 6 realms, and they want to liberate those who are not liberated and release those not released. And so similarly, in the animal realms, animals love their own offspring, or there are some animals who possess a greater level of peace and happiness. They are able to coexist. Many hundreds of animals are able to stay together and protect one another. And that is also due to a cause they have created, the cause of happiness, which is a mind of love. So even the slightest moment of love leads to such happiness. But then this love has to be sustained with patience. So we have love, but we often do not have patience. We do not sustain or protect our love with patience. And even though we have a precious human body, even though we love, we are unable to protect this love if there is no patience in our mind. And mainly that comes down to considering ourselves as most important. I'm most important. And that is why we are not able to be patient with others. So for now, we experience God-like happiness as a precious human being. Our 6 sense consciousnesses are distracted by the 5 sense pleasures. We are attached and we possess these sense objects. And as a result of such clinging fixation, we develop the 6 afflictive emotions. We act on them, we accumulate karma and form habitual patterns in the mind. And in this way, the ice block further solidifies through harder ice. And so this is where all the suffering in this world comes from. There is no suffering that doesn't arise from an afflictive emotion. And we want to ultimately care for our own well-being. For example, there are some who are in charge of entire countries and they say, I want to care for my country, but it's my country. But actually what they fail to see is that the country really is the people. But then instead of really actually supporting their people, they use their people like objects, like earth or rocks, and they use them to make war and to serve their own self-interest. So they are not really actually caring for their country because their country is really the people. And then there's others who have a greater level of wisdom in their mind, and they understand that if I want to care for my country, I have to take care for my people. So the mistake that arises due to very thick layers of self-clinging, which make the mind be like in an ice block-like state. So that is the cause of all the suffering, all the misery in this world. And it all arises from a cause. If the cause is not created, then no suffering can be created, no suffering can arise. Because we have created the causes of suffering from lifetime to lifetime, we continue to experience suffering. It is because of our attachment to the self, our clinging fixation to the 5 sense pleasures. And as a result of that, we engage in the 10 non-virtuous actions. And the result of these actions continues to ripen, continues to mature. And as a result of our own actions, those who have accumulated similar karma will meet together. So all of you are probably familiar with the 10 non-virtuous actions. But in brief, the 3 non-virtuous actions of the body are to kill, to steal, to engage in sexual misconduct. The 4 non-virtuous actions of the speech are telling lies, slander or divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle talk. And then the 3 non-virtuous actions of the mind are covetousness, ill will or harmful thought, and wrong views. And so wrong views is the most detrimental. And we have wrong views. We think that there is me and then there is him. And I want all goodness for myself, and he can just go to ruin. So we naturally have these thoughts. We naturally have negative thoughts towards others. And for example, another wrong view is to say that the Dharma is wrong, and after we have died, we will just be gone like a flower withering. There is no karma cause and effect. There is no past and future lives, and so on. So these are wrong views that lead to the various sufferings in the world. And many people are holding these kind of wrong views. And as a result of engaging in action on the basis of such wrong views, they experience continuous suffering in the 6 realms of samsara. So if you understand that, and if you understand the nature of the mind, you know that everything arises from karma. Everything comes back to a cause. And once that cause is created, it is bound to mature. And so therefore, if I create the cause of bodhicitta, then naturally this will lead to liberation. It will cause the ice block of self-grasping to melt. And so this is what the Buddha has accumulated throughout 3 endless aeons when he practiced the 6 paramitas. So the path of practice begins with the reflection on the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and then creating the cause of happiness, that is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is like lion's milk. So you may, if you were to ask, is it really lion's milk? Do we really need to have a milk of lion? So that's not the point. That's just an outer example. The example of the lion is given because the lion is the king of animals and doesn't need to be afraid of any other animal. But the inner example it refers to is bodhicitta. Those who possess bodhicitta have nothing to be afraid about. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are fearless because of bodhicitta. And because of bodhicitta, they have realized that all phenomena are illusory or dreamlike by nature. The Buddha's mind is vast, all-pervasive like space. The Dharmakaya is like space. And within the space of Dharmakaya, no fear exists. That is the state of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. The mind is like a vast ocean. And they see the ice block state of sentient beings and want to help them melt this ice block. So they strive single-pointedly to help beings melt their ice block. They strive by manifesting limitless nirmanakaya forms that benefit sentient beings. So this is the mind generation or the mind of bodhicitta that the Buddha had developed first. Then in the middle, he accumulated merit for 3 endless aeons. And in the end, he attained a state of enlightenment. And he now appears to us to benefit sentient beings. So to us, to our perception, the Buddhas appear, but from the perspective of the Buddha himself, the Buddha has realized that all sentient beings, all phenomena, all appearances are illusory by nature. So no real existing sentient being appears to the Buddha. And the Buddha doesn't really go out to benefit sentient beings, but the Buddha always actually remains in a space-like state. And while he remains unmoved from this space-like state, Buddha still appears to benefit sentient beings through the Dharma. So again, to summarize the Dharma, to practice the Dharma, what do we need? We need to possess patience. And if we possess patience, we are able to protect love and then are able to refrain from engaging in the 10 non-virtuous actions. If we are unable to cultivate patience, then we will naturally engage in the 10 non-virtuous actions. We will not understand that a result will mature from these actions in future lifetimes. And then we will continue to accumulate karma upon karma and karmic imprint upon karmic imprint. And this is why we now find ourselves in this samsaric world.
삼제들 물리들이랑 뭐제들아 수습 대화 자지세 빠진 데이터 물리 뭐라 대화도 요건데 형들이 삼제가 되는 배나 다다 코르디와 단속 자타자가 요리 야 자타자나 다다다니 자타 잡는 마시 받는 탈신이 이 강이 뒤집어 내가 뭐세대 놀롱도 같이 용내 남은 보면 대화요 말이지 냐와 나기리지 난 생투고는 놀러 주치면 맨날 심심되리지 내가 그랬지만 대변고 랑 답시가 되고 봐 대착이요 대원 지왕 아마 조바라티니 삼제티니 조바라티니 데리티니 물을 보치토 야 추천미티니 물을 보치토 아니 점바라티니 놀러 주토 조바라티니 조장고 동지고 체험하던 게토 대 담지에 삼제가 남지 되래 너마처럼 조바스는 되니 물을 보자 통도 되니 대화되는 오 깝트인데 막 가리서는 됐다 그래야지 오 다티 대화디 저때도 잘때도 저때다 그래야지 말로 조요반데 점마가 가는 레지 나 물을 보자 치료는 가는 레지 zondibo, dondibo, quando io c'era una tante, zuba cardinesi. Tele, che tardi di Sancho si sono, tele dibattito sono zubato, totale, prima non può dire top, tolle, tre giabere di del ne del mambo yore, ne di battaglie di samte che cade, samte di zube da poter cadere. E dopo mangiare samte di prima volta sono, tagliante, già di devate, domini giorno yore. Kami kasih zaman mereka cina dungi kani do, jakap dalam mana, me dalam mana, tapi jauh kalau sama tanah, dono zuba siapa di tata, tu segi orang no serje pemago osong, serje pemago no segi orang di, daftar padu kani jangan, muta pasang tu kira tu, jengkang mes, kani mes. Kalau sedih siapa orang, yang mana sahaja ke kompang thomne, nampak yang dek yo, yang mana luar tu incam tu, semua orang cecok cewek yo, pasal apa berarti aku le, tak le masa aja dekat cemboleh sahaja. Oh, sila tu ko ludi je ko jangan luar tu, kau jam tu ludi kau je so. Temporer tu ni marak kono yang jadi sungguh betul juga baca kono soalnya. Dia tampi luar tu, dungi sama dungi rasa coba ni, marak pak kono tu ni. Kalau mereka sambil itu tamu caci pun mahabawo, dandi ni caci boleh. Ni pada te dandi ni jadi sebenarnya nggak top, saja komang nggak top. Jadi mereka dah rejim ni masih ben thori kita datang tom betul. Jadi tahun betul terus nyam dia te dungi le sama na, jadi boleh tak dewa jadi boleh tak sahaja sebenarnya. Dia tak kau tak ni macam cina orang Hamaga pana yore, nidiga pana yore, lokoto toto pana, samte de zachi bore, samte lang de lejum de shila, tebe baje samotong, samte de jachira dong, ta tama pama ma de man mete, samte jachira dong, tri zachi moibe, nu serje mago de zuba go yore, de zuba le de tatang mete, be chongchu de ko an chata de dang ta se yore, gare Cuma buat soal juga goni dari soal gongore, soal siapa deh, soal mana tapi na soal juga teni oh nggak mau kagak nggak mau jajan sulit cerita tahu betul kan, ya nggak tamar loni enggak, cang jajan enggak ya cang ke, orang macam ni siapa siapa tanah masyarakat ni, mati di jalan siapa gongore, tapi tu saja pengajar, saja zubi pelan, zubi pelan tadi tak. Zuba semacam oh, macam ni boleh satu kajian jawab apa, oh, tapi nanggut ni sama dengan ni jadi serta jawab apa, sampai jawab apa, oh, tidak boleh serta tu, tidak kau dah sah ser, tidak kau itu seperti tu dia pimpa dah dewa sama pimpa tap, kali ni dia tu dah ya tidak, tidak langsung ya jadi, tidak, mereka thori ke dewa jam macam apa Hatok sanjay je komang thapa de, te je samjay le thore, nu se je ma wo je zuba le te yin le, te le nang tatan tabele ne mama tamche na, chung de choa to go le te le, la je teshi ba yo ke zuba go yo le, zuba ma go le tata ne je domi ma go yo le, te le tato ko te le te le samjay za chi mo yin ba, gebe rong ju do ba ja se la je, rang so da. Ranga cheso lüde cheso da samte ni sota che bore ta dango yore kare cheso de lüde ka ti nan todo ore todo ko de je me da bare samte de je wale je tamche na dana me ba saje je ko ma ta da ne kam thori so ko de wale je de ta to saje ko bang ma to ba nyam do ko to che de ta sa jo se be 사정선의 유래티를 가리 배도 다지 받아요 말에 다한테 다 말하고 담지 그 녹화비지 작성돼 봐야 돼. 내 몸을 독독하고 나서고 너무 그래. 저 인피로 갈아서는 어서고 너는 다 선배만 보여리지. 대답지가 싸고 우리 사람들이 대답지 사망인 일이 저도 대 총콜소 상하고 총콜도 그래. 대답을 인피를 놓다 버리지. sempre deve ter talvez zubate dele cerca não estava boa 강이 가디 가체체나 조바 타는 대 문화를 배송 거래 돼. 강송 거래 되는 위성자와 시당이 소로 받아 조바 공서 소도 그런 말이지. 어떤 거 세로세 다다다 라리 소디면 송도아. 다른 이바 중제 민다양 가다다는 거 조지는 대우가 니지들 봐나 제가 다른 뭐 자기라는 송도아. 조소로 르디 가는 말이지. 나 상속세도 자치버리 참 대도 삼십바세 조바 타토 조바 대도 소라 이제 타바고는 대는더니 내 같은 타토가 돼야 토마바드 통타 파서도 게와 그리고 대외 대도 상속세 동 짜이 붙이고 이바시 맞다 또 로로 강도 송의 상속세 맞더니 내가 중대 통고가 대시 되게 걸로 삼모 양도 당 들이들이 따다 삼모다 다이는 노바 방야다들이 소탕다 조바다 종류 때라서 말하면 이게 거래 대답을 삼았다면 통상적으로 짜지 보고 시고래 제 짜지 보면 저기 다 쏘러 받는 거지 그러나 또 별진이 세상에 다들 깨라 터는 거 세상만 들이 도는 탈생적을 배나 대답을 삼았더니 세상 쪼여 막았더니 다다다 대성 까바똥도 싸고 개화양들이 개화더니 까똥싸고 그냥 코로째를 요발 정도가 개화도 싸와니 가리다 삼제 라도 요래 대강 대문 뭐 뛰어가도 쇼로 깝들이 뒤잡네 들 대시 봐요 왜 놀라 삼제 싸치 보니 봐 대개랑 좀 만망대 약함 잡을링 삼아십디 차고 삼 들이 삼었다면 들이 삼제 매번 썰어도 단답을 풍족 참아들이 다 공시받는지 다들이 용거리 때때에 저기 다다 인육함 다도랑함 나니니 아들이 방글로에 내 동네에 타면 저때 때들이 랑 주제기 딜로들이 다 동네만이 다된 돈이 줘서 대걸로 삼는다 보다는 저 보는데 들나게 양 다소지라 용말이 때라면 강시시 양의 용들 라야 데이터 좀강한 로지셔 되네 우리 컨트롤을 잡 레가르나 대작할 패들이 상 약하는 기시지만 용 마망 노세지만 용 로봇 편집을 때 잡을 상태가 답보다는 대인가나 완롱 표선 다른 냠이 롭장 주바로는 가야메게 주바상으로 땅에 들이랑 게 카토가 중강대 중강대랑 말이지 냠이 세상하고 차송 장에 대도 저와 뒤에서 들으더니 대다 타투 강거리 다 주바로 그래야지 대대는 어디랑 냠노 기타에 주로는 받대
So now we are in this southern continent of Jambudvipa in this world, and as precious human beings, we all should reflect on the importance of the precious bodhicitta, which is loving kindness and compassion. So in this world as human beings, even the slightest happiness arises from this. It is said in the 37 practices, the happiness of the 3 higher realms is as fleeting as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass. But even the slightest happiness is the kindness of love. It's because we have developed love. For example, the slightest happiness of a married couple, because of love, they will be able to stay together for the rest of their lives until they die. And that is also connected to patience. They are able to sustain their love because they are able to be patient with each other. For example, if you go to a family, if you visit a family that is wealthy, but they do not get along, there's no mutual love, then that experience is like hell. Visiting them is like hell. But if you go to visit a family that is very harmonious, they love one another, even if they're very poor, you feel very happy there. So even if it's just a mundane activity, if there is true love and patience, then there will be a corresponding result. So in previous lives, we might have cultivated love and protected that love with patience. And as a result of that, we have obtained a precious human body. So generally speaking, it is said that if we practice ethical discipline, we obtain a precious human body. If we practice generosity, we will find wealth. If we practice patience, we will experience a long life, have harmonious relations, and a beautiful appearance. And all of these qualities of generosity, ethical discipline, and patience actually all arise out of love. So ultimately, because of love, we have found a precious human body. And so now, as a precious human body, if you do experience happiness, then recognize the origin of this happiness. For example, if you find yourself being wealthy, then recognize that this is due to having practiced generosity. Or because you have a precious human being means that you have practiced ethical discipline in the past. So every happiness you experience has a precise cause, and that ultimately comes down to love and patience, because you sustained your love with patience. So at the root is the seed of bodhicitta. And the seed of bodhicitta then supports our activities of generosity, ethical discipline, and patience. And all the peace and the happiness in this world arises from these qualities. And there are many people in this world who are very happy and they live their lives in peace. And that is because of love and because they have protected their love with patience. On the other hand, if we fail to do that, if we do not protect our love with patience and instead become controlled by the afflictive emotions, then whatever happiness we have will in the end turn into suffering. There are some people we can see in this world who, even though they possess a precious human body, they always suffer. They always run into difficulties. So not everyone is the same. Not everyone, even in one country, is the same. So in brief, it all comes down to the quality of patience. And so we have said that bodhicitta is like the lion's milk. And this lion's milk must be contained in a golden vase. And the golden vase is patience. So the lion's milk is bodhicitta, and the golden vase that contains the milk is patience. And if you have patience, patience is virtues in the beginning, the middle, and in the end. If you have patience, there is no difficulty and there is no need to be afraid of anything. But if you have patience, that mind of patience will endure. The mind cannot die. After the body has died, one either goes on to attain enlightenment, one merges with space, or one continues to wander anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara. But the mind cannot cease to be. The mind ultimately is beyond birth and death. So understanding that, to recognize that it is important that I observe karma, cause and effect, because it is only this body that will die. When I die, I will exchange bodies. Lord Jigten Sumgyen said in the Gongchik that which wanders in samsara, the ocean of samsara, is the body. And he said that at the root of the 12 links of interdependence is ignorance. So the fault of all suffering of all sentient beings in the 6 realms is ignorance. It all arises out of ignorance. And because we are ignorant, we do not understand the importance, the preciousness of love and compassion. But instead, we falsely think that the self is what's most precious. And so we create a dualistic reality of self and other, where we are unable to see our true nature. We cannot see our Buddha nature. And therefore, temporarily, we create the 6 realms of samsara. And for example, when we look at the difference between the higher and the lower realms, we can see that by observing humans and animals who coexist. You can see how much more suffering is experienced by the animals. And all of that has a cause. It is a lack of bodhicitta. When we cultivate love, we begin to recognize the preciousness of the love that we have, for example, for our family members, our parents, our relatives, and especially the love that we have for our companions, our spouses, and so on. So that love is very precious. And if you understand karma, then this love will increase to become immeasurable love. So the Buddha cultivated the 4 immeasurables, recognizing that all beings have been my parents, have been my mothers. They are all precious. And the Buddha recognized that in order to sustain love, I need to cultivate patience. So the lion's milk of bodhicitta must be contained by the vessel, the golden vessel of patience. And one who understands that, even if we just give a small example, in a samsaric example, for example, a married couple who understands that will be able to live their lives together until the end. So on the other hand, if we don't understand that, we become carried away, caught up by the attachment caused by the 6 sense perceptions. For example, there is some who really like the taste of sweet, and then they can't refrain from eating sweets, so they develop diabetes. Or there are some who can't stop smoking and they develop lung diseases. Or there are some who can't stop drinking even until they die. Even though they don't want to die, they keep drinking. So if they don't want to die, then they have to be mindful when it comes to creating the right causes. So we need to create the cause of love that is contained by the vessel of patience. And such a person who possesses this lion's milk of love and the golden vessel of patience is a stable person, and a person that doesn't easily change. He's stable like the earth, like the ground. And inside possesses love and compassion, which makes their mind unchanging. True love is unchanging. And therefore, an example is that of gold, because gold is unchanging. And it is that gold of love that will benefit sentient beings. So in this way, if you cultivate love, then your own mind matures into, your mind becomes, or your intention becomes a true, undefiled, highest intention for sentient beings. And that in turn will lead to the temporary happiness in the higher realms, and ultimately will lead to enlightenment. So all happiness comes back to the cause of love. The lion's milk of bodhicitta must be contained by the golden vessel of patience. So, for example, even if you engage in the slightest way in any of the 5 sense pleasures, when the 6 sense consciousnesses connect to any of the sense pleasures, you need to be mindful and aware and practice patience at that time. Because if you fail to be mindful and lose your patience, that will lead to a lot of suffering in this life. What we need to understand is that ultimately, the ultimate cause of all happiness, what's ultimately most precious, is love. And so that is why in the 37 practices, it says, those who desire a wealth of virtue, to those who desire a wealth of virtue, all those who do harm are like a precious treasure. We should really reflect what is more important. Is it my own body, my own life force, or is it love? Normally, we consider our own body as the most important. But in the end, if you think about it, your own body will disintegrate one day. There's nothing we can do about it because it is impermanent. It is subject to disintegration. But the bodhicitta, the love that we have developed in this life, will remain with us even beyond this life until we attain enlightenment. Temporarily, it will bring us to the higher realms, and ultimately it will bring us to enlightenment. So your true companion is bodhicitta. It is by far more important, more precious than your own life force, than your body. And so what is the benefit of cultivating bodhicitta? It is that when you cultivate bodhicitta, the self-grasping disappears. And then ignorance disappears just naturally. And in this way, we overcome the 6 afflictive emotions. Otherwise, if we are caught up in a mind of self-clinging, then this mind of self-clinging is like a magnet that will naturally attract the 6 afflictive emotions. You have an altruistic mind, on the other hand, everything becomes positive. For example, if you're just eating food, you would consider all the microorganisms inside your body and think, I'm feeding them. And according to the Vajrayana, the secret mantra, in this way, eating with love and compassion becomes a Gana Chakra feast offering. So the altruistic mind is what is most important. And it must be sustained by patience. And that is most important, especially whenever you encounter hardships or difficulties. That is when you must not lose your patience. Milarepa had said, the root of the lower realms is hatred. Therefore, practice patience even at the cost of your life. One's life force, one's body really is meaningless. It will disintegrate. What is most important is that you look after your mind. Again, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, even though you have not done the slightest thing wrong, if someone comes to cut off your head, you would take on their negativities with great compassion. That is the Bodhisattva's practice. So even if someone were to come and kill you today, you would still not lose your bodhicitta, because you know that my body is not important. What's important is bodhicitta. And so this is what the Buddha had ultimately accumulated. It is such patience. And so patience is the ultimate virtue. Virtues in the middle, in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So ultimately, that is what we need to cultivate. But first of all, we need to recognize the preciousness of bodhicitta. And we need to recognize that all happiness of all beings, humans, animals, all beings in the 6 realms, all happiness arises from the basis of bodhicitta. Now think about this again and again. If you really understand the importance of bodhicitta, you will naturally give up wanting to hurt others, wanting to harm others. And naturally, virtues such as ethical discipline, diligence, generosity, patience, and so forth will arise. So, but first you need to understand the importance, the preciousness of bodhicitta. And you need to come to a resolution where you think, even at the cost of my life, I will not abandon bodhicitta. For example, between friends, when 2 friends get angry at one another, they lose their love, they lose their bodhicitta. So you should think that from today onwards, I will not get angry at my companion. I will bring our love to reach a perfect completion, meaning that we will be together until for the rest of our lives. So anger is something in particular that we have to be very careful about. It is said that a single moment of anger destroys the roots of virtue that we have accumulated in thousands of aeons. And so what is this root of virtue? It is love. And that is lost when we get angry, when we become controlled by anger. So when anger arises, this is where we need to be extremely mindful and careful so as not to lose our root of virtue, which is love and brave. So at all times, remind yourself with mindfulness of the importance of love, and just sustain a thought that wishes for the happiness and peace in this world and the happiness of all sentient beings in this world. And recognize that all the conflict and wars that we just mentioned before arises out of a lack of love, arises out of self-grasping. So ultimately, if we hold on to self-grasping, it will lead, first of all, it will lead to the ruin, the downfall of others. And in the end, it will lead to our own ruin. It is our own detriment. It will lead to birth in the 3 lower realms, from which it is very difficult to become ever liberated again. The root of all such misery is our selfish, self-cherishing mind. Again, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So think about this really well, my friends. I'm sharing with you these words really just from my own personal experience. I do not have much learning. I do not have many other great qualities. But what I've learned, I've mainly learned in my time in prison. I spent 20 years in prison, and during this time, I practiced being very careful when it comes to anger. And I can say that throughout this time, the labor that I had to perform, I did so in order to benefit the country. And never once did I have a thought of hatred towards the country. Never once did I have a thought of hatred towards a single person. I was always very careful to protect my mind from anger arising. And I would like to impart that also onto you, my friends. Be very careful when anger arises. Again, I'm not someone who possesses much learning, much studying. I do not have many vast transmissions and empowerments and so on. But I have reflected on patience, and my main place of practice was the prison. And so what I'm imparting onto you is really just my own personal experience. And what I learned from this time in prison is that I must by all means practice patience. And so this, my friends, is the experience I would like to share with you.
Long đồng nghe chi tập gì đồng nghe xem mà sát là cái này là sẽ bảo mà chi bài mà ta thấy những cái đông lên rồi ta thấy liền cái rồi thế là phát sáng chế tập cho muốn làm thì chính là sáng chế tập cho muốn làm cái thì đồng nghe rất sẽ muốn làm rồi thì chú trọng muốn làm đã chẳng kỳ chim bồi rồi thì đồng nghe đấy giờ sao muốn tăng thì đồng nghe thì gom tí nhiên bỏ ra thì muốn làm thì sáng trọng sẽ rất là mà lại bảo đa gì cái lệ cái đấy thì nhiên bỏ sáng trọng sẽ cái đấy set tập cái lệ nghi duy chế tập thế rồi chú trọng muốn làm yang tăng là xong mà lao qua rồi thì sao mà là trái gì để lên chứ.
And one more important thing I would like to mention is that in order to cultivate bodhicitta, it is very helpful to read the Shantideva dedication prayer from the Bodhicharya Avatara again and again. And so when you read this dedication prayer, you read through various kinds of suffering and really bring them to mind. For example, when you read about the suffering of blindness, then bring to mind the suffering of someone who is actually blind, who cannot see anything. And then imagine they would somehow regain their sight. how much happiness would they experience? So reflect in this way as you recite through each of the different sufferings that are stated in the Shantideva dedication prayer. And whenever you come to a certain suffering that you read about, a feeling of unhappiness or of discomfort should arise within you. And at this time, you're actually practicing Donglen. You're actually taking on the suffering of others at that time of reflection. And then you continue to read on the aspiration of all the Buddhas of the 3 times and how they want to dispel all that suffering from sentient beings. So the Shantideva dedication prayer is a very important prayer because as you recite this prayer, you really reflect upon each different kinds of sufferings. So first, as you recite a certain kind of suffering, you read through a certain kind of suffering, you reflect on that, you bring that suffering to mind. And then as you go on reading, you come to the antidote to that suffering, the aspiration of the Buddhas. Basically, the antidote to the suffering is bodhicitta. It is the antidote to the cause of all suffering, that is ignorance. It is karmic actions created with a self-grasping mind. Bodhicitta is the antidote to all such karma. And as you read through this prayer, think that may these karmas be severed, may they be brought to an end through the antidote of bodhicitta. So I encourage you to recite this particular prayer over and over again. Hatashi Delek to all of you.
Thank you, long la, long la.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Rinpoche. So such beautiful perform teaching for the participation with bring the love and the compassion together. And we receive lots of teachings from Rinpoche. So we have to, our followers, we have to actually, use these teachings for use for our own practice. So that's very important. Sometimes, we hear lots of teachings, but we use for others and then become, it's not pointing to our own. So pointing to others for teaching, then that become, teaching is misunderstood. So that's why we receive teaching such perform like this. We always have to look to ourselves, use ourselves, use the important is, I think, our mindful. So mindful is important. Rinpoche giving this very important teaching. So example, like today, the country leaders kind of like use other people, country people. So that kind of situation we have every single day, we use like others, like depending like our individual level. So all this kind of like we have to bring to our mind, for daily practice. Whatever we're doing something is really watch our mind and then use the action or speech and the body. So I think this is very important. So we have to always bring these teachings to our own practices. We are so fortunate, and the Rinpoche is sharing teaching directly for us, and we have to recognize we are all fortunate in this planet right now, and then use this practice ourselves. So we have to benefit for others. That's most important. Right now we recognize in the world, it's not that, it's great, it's so much difficulty, so much negative is arising. So we have a special master like Guru, Garchen Rinpoche, rare Bodhisattva, and we have an opportunity to receive teaching from him. And we have to use these practices to follow his footstep, his path. So that's I just remind, myself, I have to myself and also brothers, sisters, Dharma brothers, sisters, I try to just remind you that. And then also thank you to today the organized and the GBI, all the staff members and the Digong Dharma Seya staff members, all this bring, this teaching together, and also zone organizer, And then also we have Amanda Digong Damasaya. She sent beautiful emails all the time. I think you receive. So thanks very much, Amanda. All this beautiful, information sharing for teachings for others. So now I'm going to chant the dedication prayer. Dojang, Telopa, Naropa, Marpa, Malarepa, Dharma, Lord Gambopa, Pamotropa, and Lord Digompa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all Kaju Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve any change. By defeating all enemies, confusion, may all who traverse on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. Bodhicitta, the excellent, precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is unborn, may it is not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray the Lama may have good health. I pray the Lama may have a long life. I pray that your Dharma activity separate far and wide. I pray that I may not be separate from you. As Manjushri Vero realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantha Bada, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddhas who attain the three kayas, by the blessing of the true of unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By this virtue, collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the inner rule of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Digompa Ranashiri, who is omniscient, Lord of Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation, until the end of the samsara. Thank you. And words are thank you.
Can I speak now?
Mani Beme Hong, 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 Mani Beme Hong. Mani Beme Hong, 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 Mani Beme Hong. Con, please go ahead. Con. So he cannot hear, I think. Mani Beme Hong.
Yeah, just
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Okay, you see me. Sorry about that because I'm not the good. I'm the lummy IT, so I don't know how to use Zoom. But anyways, on the behalf of the Gunda Masurya and Mary Center in the world and the Global Sangha, we thank you very much for, especially we got a Lama here, we came summed up any game show and all the ordained Sangha from the world, Campo, have provide all the support needed, and all the Dharma Center also organized the Sangha to come to the center to participate in the teaching and also share information. First of all, I would like to thank you to Ina. I know she's still there or not, the super translator, along with all the translator in different languages, including, I would say, Vietnamese, Chinese, Mongolian, Spanish, German, and Russia. And not only the translator, but also they organize the audience in their group to ensure that everybody can listen to the teaching. And I would also like to thank you to Christina Lambert and her GBI team. I think Campbell already mentioned, because I've been coordinating with working with Christina since November. You know, she had patiently worked around the schedule, and it's not easy, Christina. So it's a big task, especially all your hectic schedule and activity in GBI. So we've been in your shoes, so we know that. So it's a big job, and thank you for all your support. You're our hero. And I would like to thank you to all the Vietnamese Bodhisattva for all Zoom organizers, as well as Sister Center, Vancouver, and Gatroma has helped to organize the Zoom to ensure that everyone can attend the teaching, and especially my sister at Rukunda Masu. I see now I would call the Zoom queen, because she knows everything there. She knows to run that there. And, you know, so we have a lot of work, even though we have some technical difficulty, I believe, but I think we work it out around. Many global Sangha here. I know that there's people from numerous countries in Asia, in Australia, including New Zealand, in North America, including USA, Canada, and Mexico, countries in South America, many of them, as well as many countries in Europe. And especially include our Sangha in Russia and Ukraine. So we would like to dedicate all the merits from the teaching to the world peace. I think that's the main purpose of that. It's all about Bodhisattva that Garchen Rinpoche had mentioned. So we dedicate for the world peace, and hopefully there will be no more war, and the world will be saved from outer and inner danger, and everybody live in harmony, harmoniously, live in harmony, and no more fighting, and understand each other, love each other. And last but not least, I would like to thank you to all the global Sangha for all your support and donation. And hopefully next time around, we'll be able to reach out to the Sangha in Africa continent. That's where we're missing, and some part of the world that have not yet joined it yet. So hopefully we have the whole world will attend the teaching with Garchen Rinpoche. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. Love you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we will have videos for everyone to rewatch and contemplate on this precious teaching. And may everyone gain and attain boundless patience.
So we see you next